You do not know the power of the Darksynth. Darksynth. You must come to the dark side of the synth.
Darksynth is a subgenre of synthwave with a darker and more heavy feel to it, hence the name Darksynth. In fact, many of the artists in this subgenre actually come from metal or have a metal music background, for example, Dance with the Dead. So how do you actually go about creating a dark synth song? Well, that's what I'm gonna break down for you in this video. So here we are inside of my DAW, and we're just gonna get started with the overall picture of the track here. So you have the tempo. Darksynth is typically a little faster pace, as a higher tempo. I have 126, so not super high, but it's definitely not slow. I also just to do something a little different here, I'm using a 3/4 time signature versus the typical 4/4. You don't have to do that. I just felt like doing that for this song. All right, looking at the individual instruments now, I have my drums here, and we're using a pretty straightforward drum pattern here. We'll hear it now. And then we go into the verses here. I'll try to have the kick drum kind of sound like a heartbeat because it has more of a darker vibe to it. And then for the actual drum samples I'm using Beatmaker Vice by UJam and I believe Beatmaker Nemesis. So I use this combination a lot, especially with darker synthwave music. Beatmaker Nemesis is really more for cyberpunk kind of feel, which Darksynth is similar to. And then you have your Vice here, which is your typical kind of 80s synthwave drum kit. And so these are really awesome. They come with a bunch of different drum kits. You get so many different, not only samples that you can just use, but it also comes with tons of different drum patterns that you can just drag and drop the MIDI into your project. And I've done video reviews on both of these plugins, so if you want to go deeper on these and you want to see more, learn more about them for yourself, I'll have these linked in the description below. I'm also an affiliate for UJam products, so if you use my code OAA at checkout when purchasing any UJam product, you will earn 20% off your order. So you can see here, this is Nemesis. Kind of hear the pattern there, it's a little darker, and then I'm layering it with Beatmaker Vice. So more of your typical synthwave sounding drum kit here. And I got this little build up here. It's kind of the only other different thing I did. Coming out of the bridge into the chorus, I have this little build up section here. Pretty straightforward, and then I just have some drum fills in here, which I created just using Beatmaker Vice by UJam because they actually have drum fill patterns. You can just drag and drop them into your DAW, and boom, you instantly sound like an awesome drummer or drum programmer. So my drum bus, I got some more just bus compression, and then I added some parallel aggressor. I really like this on my drums, especially if you're doing a darker style of drums, because this is adding some parallel compression and saturation. And then on the kick drum, I'm just kind of taking out some of this muddiness down here. So then with my snares down here, I've got basically 3 different snare layers here. 2 are pans far left and right, and then I got 1 going down the center here, and so they sound like this. So this creates a really large snare sound here. Then I have my toms. I don't have much on here, just some EQ right now, and some saturation using the T-Rex Saturator X. Then with the overheads, I'm not really doing anything, just some panning. So then all together, we got our drums. And then the bridge, I do have this extra kick that comes in here that has a lot more reverb on it. Same thing with these snares. So it's a lot of a bigger, more epic sound with these slower hitting drums. Moving on to bass here, I am using a couple of different Serum presets from Synth Control's Darksynth Synthwave pack. Big shout out to Synth Control for providing me with all the different Serum presets I use in this song. I used a couple different Synth Control preset packs because he has a couple of great ones. He has Darksynth, Dark Synthwave, Darkwave, and so I've used a couple of different of those preset packs in this song, and so those will come up quite frequently. So here's the bass, and here's what it sounds like. So again, with that 3/4 pattern, I have the arpeggiator playing. So I got the arp here doing an 8th note triplet pattern, so that's how you kind of get that 3/4 arp sound going on here with the bass. I'm doing that with both of these. Here I've got 2 of them here because one is more of taking up the sub bass kind of sound. And I'm using the Furious Hunters preset here. Then with the Cannibalistic Creature preset, it's taking more of the high end of the bass. And I've got some Super VHS on the bass here too, just adding some more saturation. And then I've got some side chain compression here, just using the R compressor from Waves and sidechaining it to the kick so that every time the kick hits, the bass turns down in volume. So you can hear that. And then we got the bass 1 here, and I've got some compression on this. So we hear this with no effects. So it just kind of beefs up the bass there, makes it a little bit fuller. And I got some EQ on here. This is cutting out the low end because I have a sub bass taking over that. And lastly, I have this Diablo Light by Somatics, and it's just adding some extra distortion and punch. Then we have the bass 2 here. As you can hear, it's the sub bass. I'm just cutting out all the high frequencies. So all together. And the reason I do that is just to keep things cleaner, because if I had a lot of like distortion, like that extra distortion I was adding on the sub bass, it can get a little bit muddier. So it keeps the sub like really clean, but you still get that distorted bass sound. And then I have another bass in here for the bridge. It's more like a big brassy kind of bass, and it's called Gift Card. In Synth Control's Dark Synthwave pack. And that's it for the bass. So now we have the chords here, and I'm using again presets from Synth Control's Darksynth Serum pack. And so I've got timing issues here, which is kind of more of a pluck, and then also a key preset here. See for my chords here, I just got this alternating pattern here of some short chords followed by some longer chords. And then I also have some guitar in here because I noticed this is kind of a staple of dark synth music, and not all dark synth music, but it's often you find a lot more guitars in them. So I am using UJam's Iron 2 for my guitar here, since I'm not a guitarist myself. So we'll hear what these sound like. We'll hear what the guitar sounds like first here. Pretty cool. And then with the rest of the chords. I'm going to add in a couple more ethereal sounding chords here on the outro of the chorus to kind of help with the transition into the verse. And so I've got faster changing chords in the choruses, then in the verses, the chords are much longer and don't change as quickly. So that's, again, just to help with the pacing, to help the choruses feel like they have more energy than the verses. So here's my keys here, the Birds of Prey from the Darksynth preset pack. And I just have some EQ going through here with the filter. I'm just using one knob filter. You can use an EQ or whatever you have, any kind of filter plugin. So I'm cutting it in the beginning of the chorus here, and it's building over time to increase energy. Same thing with the verse. And the second chorus hits its full energy all the way through. Cut it again for the verse, cut it again for the bridge, and it builds up. And the last chorus, it's all the way up. And then I also just have some sidechain compression here with the kick drum, again, just like the bass, so it is ducking slightly. Pretty cool. And then I got these little plucks here. Now we have some Arps here, because this is very common in synthwave music, and Darksynth is a subgenre of synthwave, so you're going to find a lot of synth arpeggiated sounds. So I got these here in the intro. This is kind of how I open, was kind of just featuring the Arp. And then I add some guitar in. And for this guitar, I'm using Contact's Native Instruments plugin here called Electric Sunburst Session Guitarist. And then I'm using Syntronic 2 for my ARP here as well. I've got kind of 3 layers going on here. So this is what Syntronic 2 sounds like. I'm using the Star lead. And of course we got that 3/4 times, so it's kind of a little groovy. And then we got a Serum preset here from Synth Control's Darkwave preset pack, Mirage of Moonstar. And I just got some Tal reverb on it. So altogether we got this nice, lush, but also aggressive sounding ARP. And then it changes up here in the verse. It kind of has a Halloween feel to me. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just keeping the top 3 notes of this kind of 4-note ARP. And then the bottom note, I'm just dropping it down, kind of following the chords here, the root note of the chords down here. And then I got some other ARPs going on here in the bridge. So it's really more of like, it's meant to be more of like a synth piano kind of sound. And then here's that's kind of like the right hand of the piano. But also kind of an ARP-y, because it's kind of going up and down the scale and it's repeating. So I don't know what you call it. But anyway, we got the root note here, the chords. These kind of go together. So it's kind of, I'm trying to create kind of like a synthy piano type sound here. So kind of a melancholy sound, probably a little dreamier than you typically find in Darksynth, but that's just kind of my trademark with the kind of synthwave music that I make, is a little bit more of the dreamier, more atmospheric kind of sound. And so we had these panned left and right, and I just thought that created a really cool feel. And then I got a 3rd layer coming in here on top, going down the middle. And so then the sample, the presets are here I'm using from Serum and Synth Control's Darksynth here. So I got the Gauntlet key preset here that I'm using for the main plucks here, and also the main left-handed chords here. And then I have the Ragnarok key Serum preset also from the Darksynth. All right, so that is the Arps. Now we have some leads here, and I'm mainly using the lead Favorite Hero from Synth Control's Dark Synthwave pack. So you can see I'm kind of using 3 different Synth Control packs here. And I'm also using some, I guess this is called Hyperion. I think this is a Syntronic 2 sound. So I'm using some Syntronic and using some Serum here. So I got a little sine, it's like a sine lead, just a basic sine lead sound. And this little pattern I put in together, it felt almost like Legend of Zelda, like old video gamey epic kind of a sound. And I just thought that was really cool and fit with the song. Then I got the harder lead sound coming in here, the Favorite Hero. And so what I'm doing here is I'm kind of trying to make it sound a little like a lead guitar. It doesn't sound exactly like a lead guitar, but it's a distorted synth we got going on here. And so first off, what I'm doing to try to make it sound more like a guitar is I'm using pitch bends, because when you play guitar, there's a lot of pitch bends that go on. I mean, I think, because I'm not a guitarist. But so if we look here, you can see the different pitch bends I'm doing on these different notes here. To make it feel a little bit more musical, I'm doing that during the chorus too. There's quite a few pitch bends. And then effect-wise, I've got some kaleidoscope on here from Waves, which is adding some flanger and chorus. I've got the CLA guitar on here. This is what's really creating that guitar sound with the re-amplify on and the crunch setting with no effects. So we turn on kaleidoscope. And I got some CLA Echosphere to add some reverb and delay. Same thing with CLA Epic. And I also got just some EQ to try to shape it more into like a guitar type of frequency range here. At the end here, I've got some more instances of the Favorite Hero preset here, and I've just kind of tried to create some harmonies here, moving a few of the notes up and down the scale here, so it just creates a little bit of a wider sound, and I pan these left and right. And then I'm also layering this Hallmark lead from the Darksynth Serum pack. And then in the transition here, I am using Sound Shifter to drop the pitch and then bring it up here, so we'll hear that here.
It was a pleasure to burn.
Pretty cool. So you can see the lead guitar just turns into the part like a transition effect. For the other synth here, I have layered up again. I'm kind of just taking the middle portion of this sound here, and then I'm adding quite a bit of distortion with the Waves MDMX. These other guitar harmonies I have in here, I'm just basically adding some EQ and a little bit of compression. Now that takes us to our effects here, And I've got quite a few effects as I normally do. So in the intro here, I've got a couple different sounds here. I got kind of some transition effects down here. I have this radio noise. And I've got this like reverse cymbal. And then I've got a little quote from the audiobook of Fahrenheit 451. Having quotes in spoken word is very common in Synthwave, and I like to put in quotes from literature, apparently, as I did 1984 in a previous song.
It was a pleasure to burn.
So these don't have any effects yet. You'll hear what these sound like in a second, because this is just the writing project, because my computer couldn't handle recording my screen and playing back all the sounds with all the plugins and everything. So I ended up bouncing all these tracks to audio, and you'll see in a second what I did at that point. I'm already having some overload issues. So I think that's it for that. And then I got some more transitions here from the chorus into the verse, because it was pretty sudden without any of these transition effects. First off, what I'm doing is I'm taking out some of the drums here. So you can see there's a gap in the drums. And this is something, I don't know why it does this. It'll sometimes start playing on its own. Don't know why. But I took out some of the drums here, and I took out the bass, and I think the guitar chords drop out. So I'm removing different sounds here to help with the transition. Also some of the lead guitar here for the ARP, and then adding in this downer, muffled, low, and sound here. Pretty cool. I think I got that from Artlist. I'm not certain. And then as it goes into the first verse, because song's a little different. I start with the chorus, open with the chorus, and then verse, then chorus. I have this little dark pulse texture. And yeah, I did get this from Artlist. I'll have a link to Artlist in the description below. And that drops out as kind of the verse takes off. And then I also got some other transitions here. Got the radio and the reverse cymbals here as it goes from the verse back into the chorus. But I also got the cyberpunk transition sound here. I got the muffled downer again. And then in the bridge, the guitar guy. Let me know if you know why it does that. I got some other cyberpunk transition here. And then we got more of the opening of Fahrenheit 451 here, the spoken word. And I got this fire sound effect building up because he is burning books in this scene here. And then we got this big build up here where there's quite a lot of sound effects. I got this adrenaline rush here, which is just an effect in alchemy here inside of Logic. Same thing with plasma drop. I got It Was a Pleasure to Burn again from Fahrenheit 451. And I got this cyberpunk sound here. And then again, the reverse cymbal twice here, actually.
It was a pleasure to burn.
It was a pleasure to burn. And the effects are pretty much all the same except for that Fahrenheit 451 quote here. So what do we got going here? I got some Aphex Vintage Exciter. So I guess we'll turn all these off and then turn them on. Some compression, some more compression, some Butch Vig distortion. I also have a reverb on it on Ascend. All right.
It was a special pleasure to see things eaten, to see things blackened and changed. With the brass nozzle in his fists, with this great python spitting its venomous kerosene upon the world, the blood pounded in his head, and his hands were the hands of some amazing conductor, playing all the symphonies of blazing and burning to bring down the tatters and charcoal ruins of history.
With everything playing, we can hear how it sounds.
It was a special pleasure to see things eaten, to see things blackened and changed. With the brass nozzle in his fists, with this great python spitting its venomous kerosene upon the world, the blood pounded in his head, and his hands were the hands of some amazing conductor, playing all the symphonies of blazing and burning to bring down the tatters and charcoal ruins of history.
And I also think I had to do some volume automation because it got really quiet at the end. So yeah, we can see there's some volume automation. And then in the other portions here where it says it was a pleasure to burn, we've got the delay increasing so we can hear that.
It was a pleasure to burn.
So I'm using the comeback kid delay here. This is really cool because I'm basically having a telephone type effect for the delay. I'm cutting the highs and the lows. I'm also adding some tape saturation, and I'm using a ping pong delay, and I'm making it wider, increasing the width and the richness of that. And I'm also using a ducker here, so you're not hearing it as much when the voice is speaking. And then I'm also just increasing the wet here with the automation. So that's one of my favorite delay plugins by Baby Audio. I'll have that linked in the description below, as long as all the other plugins I have used. So now we can hear the final result all together.
It was a pleasure to burn. Pleasure to see things eaten, to see things blackened and changed. With the brass nozzle in his fists, with this great python spitting its venomous kerosene upon the world, the blood pounded in his head, and his hands were the hands of some amazing conductor, playing all the symphonies of blazing and burning to bring down the tatters and charcoal ruins of history. A pleasure to burn.
All right, that is one way to create dark synth music. If you enjoyed it, let me know in the comments below. Also, if you like creating synthwave music, I have a free drum sample pack that you can grab in the description below. Also, let me know what other genres of synthwave music you'd like to see me create in future videos. And once again, big shout out to Synth Control for supplying me with all these Serum presets I used in this song. It really makes creating synthwave music and specifically dark synth music here a whole lot easier than having to go and try and craft your own sounds. All right, have an awesome day and keep creating.